is, I mean, we're talking about not being allowed to engage in sexual violence. And please let me finish. This is very different to what actually happened. The protocol that I've just mentioned, point four, attitude, situations, and events related to violence, sexual violence, physical force, and physical contact. Well, what happened was a gesture of affection towards that person. And it was part of the that moment of happiness. One form of conduct is very different to the other. And non-consensual sexual acts are also part of the protocol. Completely different issue. According to you, that is. It's a completely different thing. But you're asking me, I can't respond on anyone else's behalf. But what happened? Well, were you on the coach with the players? Yes, I was. What happened on the coach with the communique that you wanted to release to the press due to the whole brouhaha in the media? No, nothing happened on the coach in relation to that. Nothing. Did you not draft a press release in first person on behalf of Miss Hermoso, kind of saying that she was brushing it off, approving she was happy with the kids, you kind of brushed it aside? No, there was no statement from Miss Hermoso. And we're not talking about the first time we got on the coach to go to the hotel to change, but in the second uh, coach ride when we changed out of our tracksuits, etc., and we were on our way to the airport, the communications people, the press department said, "This is gaining traction. It's now got legs, so we need to deal with it." So I thought it would be a good idea to issue a press release regarding those statements, and if something needed to be said, I mentioned it to Pablo Garcia Agüero, who's got years of experience, took it in hand. And I'd also like to say, so you didn't dictate the press release to him. My question was very clear. After that, I'm not involved. I wasn't involved in the drafting of it. But I'll tell you what happened when we're on the coach. And I think it's important for you to understand there was also an issue with Jorge, Mr. Bilda's daughter. No, I'm sorry, you can't explain everything. If you could just answer the questions. But it's related. When I said, okay, on you go to the press release, later in redirect, your lawyers can ask you other questions. So the question, no, I didn't draft it, but Mr. Agüero showed me the press release. I was in a difficult situation, which I will, if you allow me, explain at another moment. I said, Paulo, read the room. There's been a death. One of the players' father had just died, and she was just been given the news. And I just said, okay, on you go. Let's go back to the question. No, I was not involved in the drafting of the communique. Many witnesses said that you drafted it. We can only go by what the witness said. Did you pressure her to say okay and give the green light to that press release? Well, as I was trying to say, Olga Carmona's family had just informed her that her father had died. So when we're going to the coach, I was at the head of the queue, and I ran off to find Olga because we did not want Olga to find out through the press. I mean, that wasn't really my job, but I went to look for them, for the family. And when I found them, I also found Jorge Bilda, who had just been told that his daughter could travel, that she was, no longer had acute appendicitis. So you didn't draft the communique, is what you're saying. On the plane, did you speak with Jennifer? Yes. When? Before you arrived in Doha? A couple of hours before we got to Doha. I slept the first 3 or 4 hours of the flight. And then when she came out of the bathroom, um, I was in the first row. I said, "Oh, Jenny, if you've got a minute," and we talked about it being a good idea. There were some politicians and other communication media people there, and I said we should go out and say something the same as what we had said before when we were both together. And she said no, she didn't want to celebrate the World Cup. She said in her statement she'd been very clear. Um, and I said thank you. So I made those statements myself. So when you speak to her outside the changing rooms or on the plane, it was said that she wasn't going to say anything, that she wanted to be left alone. And no, she said, I've been very clear in what I've already said. And I thought that a picture of the two of us would just put it to bed. It would be the end of it. And Miss Hermoso has said here before about, I don't know, me having two girls. I just want to put it on the record. I've actually got three. Well, for you, it was clear and your stance was clear. Why rehash it? Why insist on a press release together? Well, when you've got a media crisis and things snowball, things get legs, stories get bigger and bigger. And a crisis of this magnitude for our institution, well, you have to react, don't you? And people who know about things like that, well, I had to go by what they were saying. I was asked to send the video when it was ready, and I did. And other people were of the same opinion as me. Three people saw it and said, this is ridiculous. But the player herself didn't want to make further statements, so we didn't. So, given the importance of the event, this situation occurs. It's not for me to answer that question. Do you still think that all of those people who uh, criticize or say that a crime has been committed are idiots? I'm sorry. Let's stick to the fact. We're not going to make judge value judgments here or what people think about press releases and statements. I withdraw the question. So why was there such a brouhaha on the plane? Oh, exactly. Where were you in the plane? Where were you sat? I was in the middle, in the first row, in one of the two seats there. And who else was there? Rafael Amo, the Secretary of State to my left, and further to the right was the head coach for the men's team. So Mr. Bilda was near you, behind me. So why was there so much tension? Why was this constant noise and agitation going around? Well, there was a lot of conversations going on. The press were there, and things didn't actually happen exactly the way the player had said. And I've said this right from the beginning. It, it was a mistake. I was the president of the federation, and from the outset, I recognized I'd made a mistake. I acted like an athlete who was just a member of the group, and I should have adopted a more institutional role. But, well, I'm trying to be as precise as I can and concise. So, from the outset, you say you were remorseful? Was that your attitude? Well, after a couple of seconds, you kind of realize I made a mistake. But that's not what you said to the press, is it? No, no. I mean, I'd just been told 20 minutes earlier that Olga, Carmona's father, had died. I really wanted to get on top of that immediately. Sorry, in your interview to the copy, you didn't look remorseful or upset. You were insulting people who disagreed with what you had done. It, okay, you had an interview with the copy with Mr. Juanma Castaño. As I said before, sorry, it's a very simple question. Did you have an interview with the man from the copy? So you've called people useless or stupid or something to that effect, those people who disagreed with you. I've just said I was wrong. Okay, well, the consensual act then was not unlawful or immoral. Well, an important thing like a death, if it's not a piece of news that's received directly from the family and it's heard about in the press is wrong. So I was on top of that. You, I'll rephrase the question. Miss Hermoso's refusal or unwillingness to appear in that video with you, did that lead you to have a conversation or conversations with the family of Jenni Hermoso? No. Are you still talking to the family? Yes. Well, I think somebody said that they were going to go and speak to Jenny's brother. I didn't even know he was there. And then it was said, no, no, he'll be asleep. I'll go and speak to him later. And then some time went by, and they said, oh, I'll go and have a chat with her and see if she wants to make the same statement or talk to you. But at no point did I go after her. So did you say, or was it said why they wanted to speak? No. I wanted to know whether she was having a bad time like I and the institution itself was. I just wanted to help her out. But you didn't go and speak to the other players then? No. When we uh, got off the plane, the business area was opened up to us, and there were friends and family of the players, and my daughters came into that area as well. Did you speak to Ivana, the other one of the other captains? No, I didn't. No, because her daughter had been in hospital. Did you speak to her at the plane? Her daughter had been in hospital, and I saw her sort of back and forth, but I didn't speak with her. Did you speak to her to ask her how her daughter was? And you didn't say at any time or ask her if she wished to step up and uh, give a press release in your defense? No. And focusing on the facts, which is what we're being asked to do, the captain of the team would have to give an authorized opinion. Obviously, her opinion is important. When she left the team, she said a number of things. So we're talking about at a later date. So during the time when you were on the plane, you did not have a conversation with her. No, I didn't. Did you at any time, although you didn't speak to her, did you see Miss Hermoso during the flight? Apart from that moment when you did speak, could you see her, how she was? She was happy and bouncing around with joy. You didn't see her crying or unhappy. No, totally the opposite. The conversation I had with her was very clear. I've come out, I've said the truth, and I don't want to do it again. So I wasn't speaking about then. I'm talking about on the flight. No, I could see her. I mean, we were all in a small space, about 30, 40 meters square, and she was okay. Yeah. And at no time were you concerned with how all of this might have affected her. Not you, but her, because she's the one who received the kiss. Well, I said again, I've made a public statement. I spoke to the psychologist when we arrived, and it was just an anecdotal one-off thing between friends. And then a few days later, unexpectedly, she changed her version. What happened at the meeting, if I'm not mistaken, on the 22nd, or was it the 23rd? 22nd of August, in your office, when you called in your team to talk about the crisis. There was no meeting in my office on the 22nd. Oh, the 23rd. You know exactly which meeting I'm referring to. 22nd or 23rd of August. 23rd of August, there was a meeting with the communications department. With the jet lag, the director was sleeping, so I called in his second in command. This was a big crisis, a press crisis, and we had to, as quickly as possible, get on top of it and respond. So that meeting was to tackle the media crisis. How long were you in the meeting? Uh, a lot of other things came up, but we were there all morning into the late afternoon. Who was at the meeting? The meeting, Pablo, Enrique Juntas, and myself. That was who was there. The office is quite large. It has several areas. And on the 23rd of August, it was also my birthday. And my parents were there with a friend as well. The director for integrity came too. He had to explain something to me. He'd been in the uh, evening before and he'd explained a number of things to me, and we had a series of answers to questions, and I had to make it mine because it had been based on inquiries made by himself as well as me. And he had a laptop, and he said, well, when you've finished with it, you can send it to me. So there were a number of issues. We'd convened an assembly. The head of cabinet was there, and territorial federations. So there was quite a lot going on. You're going to be asked a lot of questions by the prosecution and other people. So we would ask you to be a bit more concise, please. The integrity report that was prepared, did you give guidance to those who had to answer the questions? No, not at all. The psychologist was there. We didn't discuss it. Patricia needed to go off on holiday. Her husband was waiting for her downstairs, and she sent a message. And I also had to hand over the computer, the laptop. It wasn't mine. And we let Patricia do hers. We set mine aside, and then she went off on holiday when she was finished. You're talking about Patricia. Did you tell her what she had to say, or change this, or tweak that? No. The three of us who were asked to make statements, we're not here to talk about what Patricia had to say. We're to focus on other facts. I'd like to finish. All of us in the office signed their statement, their own statement. So all these people who you've mentioned, Mr. Cuervo, Mr. Junta, they've been witnesses. Uh, were they engaged by you? No. Mr. Cuervo asked for Mr. Junta to come when he took over his role as communications director. Prior to that, he had been the head of the press office for the men's team, and he he wasn't a friend of mine. He was hired by Human Resources. Mr. Junta, Mr. Cava, Mr. Cuervo, your head of office, those persons, the roles that they are in at that time, are in those roles under you as the president of the federation at that time. Yes. You didn't go to Ibiza with the players. No, I didn't, and I wasn't scheduled to. The only people to go was Mr. Rivera because he'd negotiated that trip with the island's authorities. So in Ibiza, uh, Mr. Rivera was there, and a request was made through a third party to have a conversation with Jennifer, who had on many occasions said she didn't want to. No, that request wasn't made on my behalf through a third party or anybody else. Did you ask Mr. Luque to go to Ibiza, given his good relationship and friendship with Jennifer? Did he go to mediate and get that conversation with her? No. So why would somebody who had no place there, who hadn't been part of the group? I, I can answer that question. Mr. Luque uh, spends half the year down in the south of Spain. Half his summer holiday there, and his wife is from the Balearic Islands, so he spends half the holidays where his wife is from. That's why. Well, you wanted to remain president of the federation. The Spanish Federation couldn't get you to step down. It had to be FIFA. Did you manipulate those around you to get what you wanted and get a version in your favor out there? The three other accused, I didn't send Mr. Vilda, I didn't speak with Mr. Rivera or tell Mr. Luque, do this or do that. He was on holiday. Did you speak to the coaches? Well, the coach of the women's team or the men's team to kind of bring them into line and tell them what to say? No, no, absolutely not. That there's a rule in football that you cannot do that. You cannot ask a coach to do that. Could other people, such as the coach for the men's team speak on the day of the meeting. Well, the head coach of the men's team came because we had an issue in Granada. Somebody needed to go and inspect the pitch. There was going to be a match played, and we had to assess how the pitch was. Sorry, interruption. So, do you deal with these issues as president of the federation? No, but prior to a trip, because I'd spoken to the director and he was aware, um, the director was on holiday, so the head coach came and said, I'm going to call Baena. Did you at any time, being aware of Miss Hermoso's situation, let's say anything about what had happened? Miss Hermoso, I spoke to, I asked her, I apologized because of my conduct. I said that it was wrong. I said I got carried away by the emotion and the euphoria. I shouldn't have done that. I apologized. And Miss Hermoso knows that I asked her to forgive me. I apologized and she answered. We have some questions, further questions. Good afternoon. I'm going to ask you some questions about that kiss. When you say Miss Hermoso picked you up, did you not have, did you not lift her up above your shoulders? Everybody's seen the pictures. The pictures are there, you can see them. So why do you clasp her head in your hands? Well, when she's holding me like that, my arms are up and it's kind of like you go to hug someone or give them a kiss. It's like a gesture of joy, of happiness. In the protocol against harassment approved on the 27th of June 2023, just a couple of months before the World Cup, there's a definition there of sexual harassment. Are you aware of the definition in that document? Not off the top of my head, no. Okay. Eh, to create a hostile, intimidation, degrading, or offensive environment or attack someone's personal integrity. Please continue. During this media crisis that you caught on to in the tunnel going down to the changing room, what steps did you take as a president to try to mitigate it? I didn't pick up on it in the tunnel going to the dressing room. I never said that. I've never said that. I'm sorry, that's my mistake. On the plane, you realized there was a media crisis. Well, the first 3 or 4 hours, I was asleep, and then the first thing I did after that was speak to my daughters and the middle one of my three, and I said I'd been sat with Jenni at the airport, and the head of press said, "This is something between friends. Just leave me alone." It was my daughter that said that, and the people from the communications department. Could you answer the question? The question is, what decisions, what steps did you take in light of this media crisis? Well, we said that the best thing would be for the both of us to go out and make a statement, but Then it was just me, and then we convened the assembly, and I made a statement. On the 23rd of August, in your office, during that meeting to tackle the media crisis, what decisions did you make? Well, rather than decisions, there were a number of proposals tabled. Someone from the communications department, Pablo García Cuervo, said you're going to have to think about whether you need to step down or not. And on the basis of that, a statement would be needed for the assembly. I was very clear. I did not want to step down because what I had done wasn't what some accused me of doing. Please just answer the question. There are a series of facts that have been described as sexual harassment, and that's what we need to focus on. I'll be more specific in my question. On the 23rd of August, at that meeting or days before, the integrity team decided to report to protect you. No, it wasn't my decision. If please stick to the question. On the 26th of August, the Federation issues a press release saying that the player that is an yes, that is a part of the accusations. No, I was not involved in that press release. It had been drafted by FIFA, and I found out about it about 7 or 8 in the morning that I had basically been sacked. Rafael Del Amo that he heard you say to Mr. Bilder that he should speak to Jenni Hermoso's brother. Is that true? No, maybe what Rafa Del Amo heard, because when Jorge goes to speak, he was sleeping. You can't talk about what probably happened. Please stick to the facts. I'll repeat what happened with Jorge Bilder. He said he was going to have a word. He came back and said, I haven't had a word, maybe some other time. But after the second or third time he said that, I said, well, if you hear anything, just let me know. You, as the president, ordered the Spanish Federation to issue that press release. If you could tell me exactly which one you're talking about, I've been the president for 5 years or so. August 23, the one on the bus, on the coach? You mean about Jenni Hermoso's declaration, her statements? Jenni made a statement based on the statements given to the COPE that have just been mentioned, and then the okay is given, and I don't want to repeat myself. It said, okay, on you go. So when I'm told that she's said, okay, then we went ahead. It was my idea to issue that press release. That's one of the decisions that you take to deal with the issue. I've said it from the outset. I said some great statements have been made by you that explain what happened, and it would be great to release it so everybody understands what's happened. So once we get the go-ahead to release it, it's released. I didn't get a chance to read it because I was with Carmona's parents. Are any of the players paid extra? That's part of their contract. Good afternoon, Mr. Rubiales. You have been the president of the Spanish Federation, and there is a hierarchical relationship with the players. No, there's no employment relationship. Well, there's a hierarchy. If you'd allow me, was the president, or I'm during that time was the president of the federation, and I have a hierarchical relationship with the employees, but there's no employment relationship with the players. The only relationship is when they are called up to the squad, and then I undertake my institutional role as I have to accompany them. So the head coach is he or she an employee of the federation? Yes, and what role do they play? Well, they call them up, they train them, they give them tactics to follow. I get that in terms of labor law. The coaches can call up one or other players. They can put together a first team of 11 as they see fit. They can have a 4-3-1 structure, whatever it is they decide. So you've asked about a specific fact and what the head coach does. If what you're asking about is who pays their wages, I think everybody knows what a football coach is. It could be that there is no employment relationship, but there is. That's what the law says. And I was asking about a hierarchical relationship. Going back to what you said before regarding the harassment protocol, that was approved, according to you, very quickly. Uh, it was very quickly passed. But what do you mean by that? Was it a collegiate decision? We were asked to approve the document. We were sent out a draft. That draft went to all the federations simultaneously. And given that there's a World Cup coming up, we said, okay, we'll look at it in more depth when we get back. So, did you follow your internal rules of procedure in order to approve it? Yes, that was the question that was asked before. It was approved by a collegiate body. Let's move on. You have said, well, we're not going to get into whether it was a peck or a full-on kiss. You have accepted that behavior, that euphoria on your part, is something that has happened before in situations where you've been playing. Well, he's the witness. Whose version are we hearing? We're hearing from the witness. So, on the issue of the press releases, the first of which is dated the 20th of August, you spoke with your head of press at the Federation, and that press release, which was very important, was based on statements made to the COPE. Sorry, I've lost your question. Was that statement published on the 20th in the media, on the website, on the Federation's website? Well, no, I'm talking that specific press release. If you'd let me finish, that press release that was issued to calm the situation down. On, I don't know. You need to ask that question of the person responsible. And the press release of the 26th. No, well, I wasn't the president there anymore. First thing in the morning, I received the notice that I had been dismissed. Well, we're not here to discuss the FIFA sacking. You have to focus your questions on the matter in hand. Mr. Ripoll commissioned the report on the lip reading issue. There was still a number of steps to be taken with regards my dismissal. You need to ask the question, is Mr. Ripoll your representative? Mr. Ripoll has represented my interests before the FIFA. Please ask one question at a time. Going back to what you said about the conversation with Jenni Hermoso and the issue of the press release, etc. You said you didn't speak to other players or other captains or ask anybody else to speak with them. No, I did not. I have no further questions. We have no questions. Mr. Bilda's defense? Did you say Jorge Bilda? Yes, just one question. When Mr. Bilda, according to you, said he was going to speak to Miss Hermoso's brother, did you give him any guidance, any instructions, what he had to say or how? No. Did you ask him to pressure the player? No. After Mr. Bilda spoke with Miss Hermoso's brother, did you speak to him or any other family member? I didn't know them. I knew the person who came here, Miss Victoriano. I think I spoke to him. Yes, I did speak to him. He came up front and he had Alessia Putella's shirt. And I asked him whether he was a family member. And he said, no, 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 I'm a friend of Jenni Hermoso. Okay, so let's put ourselves in that moment. After Mr. Bilda went to speak with, well, the business class area is opened up to everyone for a while when we landed. My question is about the conversation between Mr. Bilda and the player's brother. No, we didn't discuss it. I just uh, spoke about people were grateful for having been allowed to join us in the area, and people were just thanking me basically. We have no further questions. Defense, with the permission of the court. Good afternoon, Mr. Rubiales. Good afternoon. When you clasp Miss Hermoso's face in your hand, did you do that so that she couldn't get away from that kiss that you were going to give her? No, no, it was just a gesture of affection. And then immediately after the kiss, did you see any sign of rejection? No, no, she went off laughing and she tapped me on the shoulder. Did you take advantage of that moment of celebration and euphoria and the kiss to satisfy some sort of sexual desire? No, never. In the moments immediately after, or on the trip back home to Spain, or when you landed in Spain, did Miss Jenni Hermoso say anything in reproach, or did she say to you that that had felt like an aggression, a sexual aggression, and that the kiss wasn't consensual? No, other than what's been discussed here. I had a very mini conversation with Ms. Hermoso on the pitch because that was my signal to her. And Ivana put her hand on my shoulder when we got in the huddle, and I was lifted above the players' heads. A few months prior to the World Cup, a number of players, the captains, had asked you to dismiss Jorge Bilda. Yes, I got a call from Irene Paredes and Alicia Putella and another who wasn't called to the squad, and to tell me I needed to get rid of him. Well, obviously, you didn't do what they asked. And they said if I didn't, there would be consequences. Do you think that the Hermoso situation helped, or your relationship with Ms. Hermoso helped get the situation with Mr. Bilda and everything back on track? Please don't ask questions about Mr. Bilda. Yeah, that's enough. Thank you. During the World Cup, were there any incidents with the player, the goalkeeper, Maria Isabel Rodriguez? If you could be as telegraphic as possible. Well, I'm trying to assess the credibility of the witness. Well, there was a lot of animadversion between her and Vilda. When you say she had been number one goalkeeper, and the way they train, well, anyway, Mr. Bilda decided as the coach, it was a situation, there was no going back. If I don't try to limit the question, it's not a problem with the question, it's the answers and how long they are. You were asked about whether you'd spoken to the other captain, Ivan Andres. Did you see her crying on the plane? No. So now we're in Spain. The captain, Ivana Andres, did she say anything to you and reproach you in any way about the kiss as the captain of the women's team, that it was intolerable, unacceptable? No, no, totally the opposite. So she said a number of things. She said them publicly as well, but she said them to me. She said that everything had been cleared up because Jenny and I had had a conversation. Also, that it had been a mistake and that I'd apologized. That was important. And publicly as well. She said that at no point was she aware that anybody had gone to speak with Jenni Hermoso. Thank you very much. That's all my questions. I think with that, we can wrap up for today. Thank you, and we'll be back tomorrow.